What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the weekly Pack Power Podcast. I'm your host, Cory Smith, here with Charlie Gribble. Charlie, how are you, sir?
Good. It's been a while.
Yeah, so this is our first time back in quite a while. I apologize to everybody that typically shows up to the show. It just, God, like between the snow, between a women's game, the Play for K game, the men's basketball game out in Louisville, we won't discuss that at all. That's been a week, so not within the last week.
Yes.
But, you know, we just haven't really been able to come together and actually do this show for quite a while now at this point. But I appreciate Emedios for being willing to still house us after a month off from here. But we are back at our normal home of Emedios. Didn't get a message from Dave, so I'm just going to shout out the fact that there will be a few road games, not this week. Obviously, we will talk about UNC tomorrow night, which is at Lenovo Center with a new Sky Bar.
Sky Bar.
Yeah.
Have fun paying the $20 drinks.
Yes, exactly. And watching from the 300 level. But there is that. So I wanted to point out at the same time that if you aren't able to go to Charlottesville next week, if you aren't able to go to Notre Dame the following weekend and check out those games, NC State games can be watched here at Emedios. They usually have specials as well, so make sure to check those out. And then last thing I'll mention, too, there's obviously a women's game at Duke this week, too, so you can come by for that. They'll have those on the TVs, too. So do make sure that you check that out. Support Emedios because they support us. We appreciate them each and every single time we're able to come out here on Monday nights. So, look, the last week, not great for NC State as far as the main, revenue sports that we talk about, the, men's basketball, women's basketball. Women's basketball got a win earlier in the week, but then, I know the final score didn't look as bad, but they got trounced by Notre Dame on the road on Sunday. But let's start with men's basketball. Looking back at the last week, again, the loss to Louisville, we won't discuss. We already discussed that on the post-game podcast. And then, what happened on Saturday. I'm not going to, rehash all of it because, again, we did it all on the post-game podcast. I want to look forward more than we do back. But just your overall takeaways on the last week for the men's basketball side of things. What needs to happen in order for NC State to get back on track based off of what we saw in the last week?
Yeah, obviously the Louisville game was the Louisville game.
Yeah.
Obviously some defensive lapses were seen, but it was also a very hot Louisville team, and just got ran out the gym is what it is. Miami game was good for about 39 minutes, I thought. You really had an 11-0 run, there late in the second half, and really thought you were going to really pull away and get a marquee victory, one that you really needed to get back into the swing of things. But obviously the last minute and 8 seconds, I think it was, happened. I think the disappointing thing for me was out of all of that was the whole time this conversation has been since the start of the preseason was we have the most postseason NCAA tournament minutes out of any ACC team right now in the league. And the fact that you can't inbound the basketball twice, you inbound it once, and you go to a center in the corner, that's a mistake. And then Trey Holloman turns it over on the very next possession, and it was a meltdown. And I think moving forward, I think my one criticism of Coach Wade, I know it's year one, I know it's new program, he's got a lot of things going on, but it dates back to the Kansas game. We talked about it on the post-game podcast. The use of timeouts. I think. There's an argument to where you can have one against Kansas when you have it tied. Obviously, Quadir Copeland goes up for a lay-in. Halfway down, halfway out is what it is. Maybe a timeout could be called. You move on. You're good with it. For the Miami game, though, I'm a little disappointed in the timeout call. Obviously, the team's kind of flustered, and it's a game that you really needed to have. You really didn't want to lose. You want to stay in the top 4 of the ACC. You want to stay, in contention for a double bye for the league tournament, and right now you're on the outside looking in. You slide to 5th, the conference standings, and the schedule doesn't lighten up. I mean, if we're being all honest with each other, and I think what's worrisome is the scout is increasingly becoming more easy. I mean, for a team in Miami to shoot 3 for 17 from 3, and still win a game is. Pretty disheartening. So, you got to get back to the drawing board and figure something out. I don't know if it's on the roster right now, but you got to find something down low in a hurry.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I pointed out, kind of going off of what we talked about on Saturday, I wrote a story. My conclusion from this game was the fact that NC State's kind of veteran core that they've touted so much in the offseason, and that has gotten them to this point, really folded under pressure. And this was not the first time. It's just the most glaring one because of the fact that it didn't lose to SMU, because of the fact that you didn't lose to Clemson, or the fact that they went to OT against Kansas, and it's kind of like, all right, those are all fine, but
Georgia Tech even.
Exactly. Well, Georgia Tech again, like just losing to Georgia Tech in general,
yeah.
But those are all games where NC State had a chance to win down the stretch, and your veterans didn't step up. Again, I know SMU, you ended up winning by 1, and Trey Holloman stepped up in a clutch moment, but you allowed SMU to get back into that game. Quadir Copeland missing that free throw, the front end of a free throw, and the same exact issue happening in this one. Instead of getting a stop like you did against SMU, Miami's a more veteran team. They're a team that was smart about it. Called a timeout, went to the drawing board and figured something out. And NC State, whether or not you think it was a foul, which I don't think it was a foul, going back and watching it again, Darian Williams looks like he gets the ball before he hits the hand, and that's why the ball falls halfway 5 feet short. Yeah. But that's neither here nor there.
Should have never gotten to that point. It's my thing.
Exactly.
So you can't really complain about it because it should have never gotten there.
Yep, exactly. And that's my whole point too, is the fact that as you said, Will Wade before the season, I pulled a quote from him before the season back at ACC tip-off. He said, "We have 549 NCAA tournament minutes played on our roster. That's 200 more than the next closest team." Like, your whole roster was built around being veteran, being able to step up in these moments. And the thing that I'm curious about now, and something that I was talking about on the boards with some other subscribers today, was like, all right, you got all these veteran guys and you got them off of great teams. The question now is, were any of those guys ready to step up in those moments on those previous teams? Like Trey Holloman, yes, he's veteran, been around for a very long time, but like, was he ever asked to be put into those roles on a continuous basis? Darian Williams, you're obviously seeing guys like JT Toppin and others on that Texas Tech team step up in big moments. Was he ever put into those situations? Quadir Copeland, we know he was put in those situations at McNeese, and obviously, but it's a different level. That's not, and at the NCAA tournament, he wasn't being asked to be put in those situations a ton because they were beating the brakes off of Clemson early.
They had shipmate too.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't know that you have any of those guys. And then Vinal Lubin, I'm sure he's probably stepped up a couple times for UNC, but he's not the guy that has to step up in those moments. Like, he's not going to be your ball handler taking the ball down the court. He's not going to be the guy that you pass inside to because he's not a very good free throw shooter. You need other guys to step up in those moments, and I don't know that any of those guys have really brought that sort of experience to them to this. And now, how much of a learning moment is this? How much are you able to step back and really try to figure things out now moving forward? The big question mark is going to be like, are you able to do that now against UNC? We know going into this game against UNC, they're not going to have Caleb Wilson. More than likely in this game, we haven't seen it confirmed yet. We'll see at 8 o'clock whether or not it's confirmed. They didn't have Henry Vasar in the last game either. We don't know if he's going to play. I don't think it's been official yet at this point whether or not they're going to play. But if you don't have those two guys in this game, is NC State able to contend in that one? And just your thoughts on that game in general and what NC State needs to do to be able to pull out a win, especially with it being at home, being in front of a sold-out crowd. First time that, Will Wade is going to play UNC after making, again, we talk all the time about making some offseason waves for NC State in general, but a lot of it was built around, this UNC rivalry and, talking about the misuse of Vinal Lubin and then Darian Williams saying that he hated Hubert Davis because of the way that he misused Vinal Lubin too.
Yeah, you've put a lot out there, on social media, through your words at the ACC Media Days. You've put a lot out there, and it's I'm not saying it's a gift, but it definitely will help if Caleb Wilson's not playing. The beauty of college basketball is you don't have to wait a week to kind of redeem yourself as you do in college football. So it's a prime opportunity. It's at home, and it's unfortunately I thought about it today as I don't even know if I want to play at home. I feel like we play better on the road and outside the Lenovo Center. But not even to go back to the Miami situation. But I watched the two plays back again on the inbounds. There's no guard going to the middle of the court. There's no outlets, at all for Vinal Lubin when he catches the ball in the corner. So It's disheartening, especially when Will Wade's talked about 6-minute games. He's worked on this in practice. He's done this over and over again. It doesn't show up, but I think on Tuesday against UNC, unfortunately it's a lose-lose. It's just the reality. I don't think Caleb Wilson plays. He's on a soft cast. UNC really doesn't need this game in terms of their resume. They have the win against Kansas. They have other high-quality quad one wins, so they don't necessarily need this game as much as I think NC State does. But it's a lose-lose. If you win the game, people will say that Caleb Wilson didn't play. Their best player didn't play. He wasn't out there. Now, if you lose against the UNC team minus Caleb Wilson, then it might be time to get off of social media and hibernate for a little bit. But it feels like a must-win, just with the chatter that's been going on in the preseason. The stuff going on between the two schools. Obviously, it's the first crack for Will Wade against a rival school that he knows that the fan base cares a lot about, regardless of what the rosters look like. It's going to be an important game. It's going to be sold out. You got the new bar. It's still a big game, and I think it will help. If you're able to kind of come back after the Miami meltdown and get one, back under your belt. I think it's the perfect team to do it against. Sucks because I love playing teams at their best. I don't want to see injuries. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not cheering for it, not rooting for it. But I think if you're Will Wade, if you're scouting this team, if you're looking at it, it was going to be a tall task to guard Visar and Wilson down low. You just saw what Renault and Uday did against for Miami against NC State. Had I think it was 53, 54 points in the paint, 20 offensive rebounds. That was the most Miami had since 2016 against Wake Forest. Looked that up today.
Beautiful.
So, it was going to be a challenge. Now that challenge maybe we'll see at 8:00, as like Cory said, if that comes to fruition. But it's an opportunity. It's what it is. It's an opportunity. It's going to be obviously a quad one game, and I think it will help to rejuvenate the fan base a little bit because it was ugly. The Boo Birds were out after that Miami game, and righteously so. I mean, if you can't blow a lead like that, but beauty of it, you get 2 days to kind of turn all that around. Because this fan base, I know, regardless of who's on UNC's roster, a win's a win. A win's a win regardless.
Well, that and the fact that, yes, I'm sure when the resume, when they're looking at Selection Sunday, they're probably going to factor in the fact that, they didn't have Caleb Wilson or they didn't have Henry Vesar if he's not playing in this game. But it's still going to go down as a quad one win. Yeah. If you're able to win this game, it's still going to go down as a high quality win.
And NC State fans don't care who was available.
Well, exactly, and that's my whole point too. Like you said, it's a lose-lose, and I'm like, yeah, but at the same time, like NC State is still going to be like, NC State fans will still be like, yeah, but we won. I don't care who was on your roster. You can make all the excuses you want, but you have to go out there and win the game, and you didn't. So that's that again. All this is said because you want to ultimately, if they're able to win this game, I'm not saying they will or they have or anything along those lines, just so we're clear, because I know people will like to clip this and be like, oh, he was already saying they were going to win the game. No. Not saying that at all. Just so we're clear. But
Ken Palm's got it at 61% right now for NC State, 81-78.
Yeah.
I'll go with the stats so we don't get clipped.
And again, some of that is factoring in, if Wilson is not playing. I believe NC State is actually a 5.5-point favorite right now. Yeah. Again, it kind of is in line with what, Ken Palm has there, because Ken Palm is saying, NC State's probably a 2 or 3 point favorite. Well, because you're at home, Vegas is going to give you a little bit better odds too. You'll get 2.5.
I mean, Wilson leads in points, rebounds, blocks, steals. I mean, that's the heartbeat of their team. And I think they know it.
That would be a lot like if Duke were to lose Cam Boozer right now. Yeah. But Duke has a little more talent around him, I think, as far as guys that can.
And I think that's the problem with Carolina. Last year they were, guard heavy. You had R.J. Davis. You had other guys on the perimeter that can make shots, and you had. Benal Lumen as your 5, but you had really no one else behind them. And I think that's the problem that State's seeing right now is you have Benal Lumen at the 5, and you have a bunch of guards, and, it's kind of like Carolina season from last year is what it feels like to me.
Carolina, the interesting part about Carolina, too, is the fact that their shooters are very streaky this season. And, when they've gotten hot, they've been really good. And as Will Wade likes to see, they haven't seen our defense yet. So we'll see what NC State.
We'll probably leave like a Derek Dixon open or
this is
Kyan
the thing.
Evans. Well, I mean,
this is the thing too. Is for NC State's defense, this is just as much of a prove it moment as anything that they're going to play so far this season, because they know that UNC is going to need to rely on its shooters. They know that UNC is going to need to get hot from outside in order to be able to win this game, as opposed to having the dominance that you've had all season down low. So, and yes, I know they just beat Pitt, but Pitt is not a very good team. Outside of being physical down low, they're not a very good team. So
they'll rely on Luka Bogovic more. I mean, they'll rely on their guards more.
Yeah. So I do want to bring this up too. Stephen had a very good point. He said, I don't want to keep bringing it up to Williams, but he has to play better. Wade was screaming in his face during a timeout. Yes, there was some choice words thrown at Darian Williams during that game, and it was because of the fact that he had 2 back-to-back really bad shots, then drove directly into traffic instead of kicking out to Matt Abel, who was wide open for a corner 3, and then turned the ball over. And then Miami goes down the court, scores, and NC State calls a timeout. And that was the exact moment that Darian Williams got his. I don't know if it was first shooting out, but it was definitely the first visibly bad one.
It looks to me, Cory, he's pressing.
Yeah,
and I think things are starting to spiral as an athlete,
especially at home.
At home, I just think things are starting to spiral. You come in, you're supposed to be the guy. Everybody talks about the money he's getting from NC State to come here. It's a lot of pressure. I mean, I'm not giving an excuse. He's a guy that's been proven talent at a Big 12 school. I get it. The paper is the paper, the stats are stats. But I just think, it's starting to pile up a little bit. Things aren't working out, and it can be a dark place. And I know NC State fans, while very passionate, very loving, very enthusiastic, the piling on, probably isn't helping either. But I get
it. Putting wanted ads out there, or looking, like trying to find.
It's not going to make anything better. Yeah, he knows he's not playing well. He'd probably be the first one to tell you, and it's starting to be a spiraling thing where it's like, if the first 2 shots aren't going down, it feels like it's either he's pressing or he's going to be passive, or it's just not going to be involved.
Need his family member to give him a call tonight before the game again, and just kind of get the the physicality back there for him, because it's going to be a game where you're going to have to be physical. Like, he's going to have to be a rebounder a little bit more in this game, and you just haven't seen that a ton when his shot's been falling. I think somebody brought up a really good point, is like, NC State spends a lot of the early points of the game finding out if Darian Williams is on as a shooter. And if he's not, then you're already behind and you have to build back up. If he is, then you're ahead and you can figure things out. But it's like, the game should not be decided at that point. So I think
it's clear that the alpha plan they brought him in to be isn't really working out. I think he could be a great contributing scorer, a great 2 or 3 piece. I don't really know who the one is as a scoring option, but right now, him as the one scoring option and putting the pressure on him to do that, it's not happening. It's not going to work. But the good thing about it is, a lot of those sins per se will be forgiven if you drop 30 against Carolina. I mean, it's that easy, and then you get the ball rolling. So it takes one game. It really does, and it's a team like Carolina tomorrow that you can do that with.
Yeah. And I do want to bring up the point here. David said need to rebound the basketball better against Carolina, put that Miami choke job behind them. Yeah, and I think it's going to be about, again, like I said about Darian Williams, but I think this goes to the entire team, just about being maybe not the more physical team, but at least matching the physicality of Carolina, because we know they're going to want to try to come in regardless of who they have. Caleb Wilson was the most physical player they had on their team, but Zayden High looked pretty physical in the last game. He at least, hauled in, I believe, got a double or close to a double-double. But I think it was like 15 points and 7 rebounds or something like that. So, a good number for him. And then obviously, if they're able to have Henry Vasar back, then they would have another physical, athletic guy underneath as well. So there is that. But the thing I will say is NC State has to at the very least, match the physicality. If you're able to match them rebound for rebound, and then be able to be a more efficient team, because NC State has better shooters, I believe. And then if you're able to find ways to get Van Lubin open down low, be able to create for him down low to get some easy buckets, NC State should be able to, make this a game for the most part, and then be able to kind of maybe run away down the stretch. We'll see what they're able to do. I want to move over to women's basketball really quickly because we are going to have to move over to football here in a little bit with Michael once he jumps on. Moving over to women's basketball, look, not the greatest of showings. NC State actually kind of wrote about the fact that they had really gotten back on track in the previous games, and we're closer, and then had talked a little bit about the fact that Camille Pierre has been playing really well, which again she had a good game against Notre Dame.
She always shows up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's kind of the Vanilla Lubin effect, but she's a better rebounder or a more efficient rebounder anyways, like 4th in the country right now in double-doubles. I believe second overall and among Power 5 players for double-doubles so far this season. Reagan Beers is the only player that's ahead of her that plays for Oklahoma. But, you win the game on the road the previous Sunday against Virginia Tech. You have a whole week off in between, and we've seen this a couple times for both NC State teams where
I don't want a week off.
Yeah, that long break actually hurts them more than it helps them. And, you kind of worry now because NC State plays UNC in men's basketball on Tuesday and then has a week off before they go to Virginia. So that's about as rough as it gets. So 2 back-to-back games against
Virginia's tall.
Yeah, exactly. It's
a matchup nightmare for NC State.
But sticking with women's basketball, another major opportunity for them this upcoming week. 3rd straight game on the road, so that's not great. But 3rd straight game on the road, you go on the road to Duke, close to home, Thursday night, 7 o'clock tip. I believe that game is going to be on ESPN. So, pretty big moment for this team. And it's a Duke team that, yes.
Hottest in the country, right?
Yeah, undefeated right now, 16-0 in their last 16 games. Also, much to the chagrin of Courtney Banghart, somehow or another, didn't have a single shooting foul on Sunday. Somehow or another, UNC didn't get to take a single free throw in that game. So really hate to see it for them. Yeah. NC State got 2 free throws in that last game, so when they played UNC. So that's why I bring that up. But again, big moment for NC State. Yeah, exactly. So big moment for NC State in this game is the reason why I bring this up. Again, Duke, as you mentioned, hottest team in the country, number 1 in the ACC right now, basically running away with the ACC at 14-0. The only way the teams can get back in this is if they start losing just every game down the stretch. Yeah. The only way NC State can even tie them in the rankings would be if they lose every game down the stretch now with only 10 wins in ACC play. But trying to stay inside the top 4 in the ACC, trying to stay, as close as you possibly can to that, potentially trying to get inside the top 4 when it gets the NCAA tournament, because NC State would love to host a regional again somewhere where they've been extremely successful over the past few years. But you get punked on the road by a Notre Dame team that's maybe not on the bubble, but like kind of the 8-9 seed
not
bubble.
Not the same Notre Dame.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And really, it's one player for them that's making a ton of impact in Hannah Hidalgo. So you go on the road, you get punked by them, and then now they're tied with UNC to try to get the 4 seed. Well, UNC is going to have to play Duke again later in the season. So you at least kind of, all right, try to find a way to win these last 3 or 4, 3 out of the 4. And NC State can put itself in a great position to still be a top 4 seed. Just your thoughts on that game and what NC State needs to do to find success in that one.
Yeah, I remember early on in the season, Duke started out 3-6.
Yeah,
and everybody was
it's very similar to what NC State did last year.
Yeah, pumping the brakes, like, oh man, maybe this Duke team isn't that good. But mind you, they played the number 5, 3, number 2 team, and the number 16 team in the country.
Yeah,
start out. So they're battle tested. And it's not a shock to see them kind of turn things around, have a great win at Louisville, and obviously they beat Carolina the other night. It's going to be tough. I mean, Cameron's not not the best place to play, but I just think NC State needs some perimeter help. I don't think you have a reliable shooter from 3 right now, which is not great.
Sam Jones has been good.
Yeah, I don't know I don't think her stats. Yeah, I mean she went 1 for 8 against Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Not great. I mean, obviously the bugaboo against Notre Dame was the 22 turnovers, 6 by Pierre. Obviously not great. Got to limit the turnovers, and I think you just got to find an option from 3. I feel really good about what you have. I said it before. I feel like you feel really good about what you have down low, at least from a rebounding perspective, at least from a scoring perspective. You feel really good at what you have at the 4 and the 5. Just got to find some shooters. Got to find some playmakers on the outside, but just got to trust Wes Moore. It's a big spot for him, but it's a like the men's team, it's an opportunity to really turn your season around 180 after some struggles.
Yeah, the key to me to this game is going to be Tilda Trieger, actually. I mean, not to say a no-show in the last game against Notre Dame, but, 3 rebounds in 27 minutes.
She's got to take more than 3 shots.
Yeah,
too.
just 3 shots in that game, one of them being a three-pointer. And I don't know if this is necessarily on Tilda Trieger or if it's more on, Westmore kind of game planning a little bit more around her and allowing her to get more shots. She's been an elite scorer for NC State. She's also been a much better rebounder than she showed in that game. So that's a little bit on her to be able to get some offensive rebounds and be able to get some easy putbacks. But, Camille Pierre, again, has been one of the most consistent players in the country. Another double-double for her in that game, 17 points, 11 rebounds.
She's going to show up.
Yeah, exactly. So it's about having your entire front court showing up and allowing a little less pressure on your three-point shooters. Yeah. Because right now it's kind of like, all right, if we're not getting things going down low, if we're not able to get it inside to the bigs, which NC State, a ton of turnovers in this game, it was because of the fact that they're trying to get entry passes and they weren't able to get them down low. And then you're not able to get shots off. Like, all of those things factor in. So they've got to be able to find a way to get Tilda Trieger a little bit more in this game. I was shocked. I was watching it, and again, a lot of this was like, well, what's the deal here? Like, what's happening that's leading to her not getting opportunities? Like, is she in foul trouble? No, 0 fouls in that game yesterday.
I just think the game was so out of hand early.
Yeah.
And
I do think she is. I will say this too. I think she is dealing with a little bit of a foot injury too, and you've seen it if you watch her. She's wearing a heavy brace. When she's not on the court, she's wearing a boot. So there is still a little bit of an issue there. But for Tilda Trieger, it's about finding a way to be healthy in this game, but also just producing in this one a little bit more, because we know one of the major issues for this team right now is the fact that you've got to get it going from your starters.
Yeah.
And this is a Duke team that relies heavily on its defense, but they're also averaging 76 points per game, 75.8 points per game so far this season. So those things have got to be a factor for them. They've got to be able to get better from a scoring standpoint down low to be able to alleviate some of the pressure on the players from outside to be able to get their shots going.
While the men's team ranks first in three-point percentage, the women's team ranks 12th.
Yeah, 12th in the ACC.
12th in the ACC.
Yeah,
yes.
And it was outside of the top 150 in the country last time I checked. So definitely not in a good place there. Last thing here too, want to point out some of the Olympic sports for NC State over the weekend. A lot of success there. First of all, the baseball team, which I don't know if you still categorize it. Yeah, baseball is still. It was an Olympic sport the last time around, and you hope that it should be in LA. So I'm going to call it still an Olympic sport. But the baseball team 2-0 over the weekend. Wish they could have played that third game, in Puerto Rico. Maybe it would have helped them move up a little bit more in the D1 baseball rankings. For whatever reason, they still stayed at 17, but inside the top 20 in every other poll so far because of the way they played. Dalton Bargo, extremely impressive in that in both games. Andrew Wiggins, I thought, showed good early pop too. Those kind of a thought process of all right, Red Johnson's going to take that spot. Andrew Wiggins probably not going to play a ton unless he's playing DH. But the first game, Chris McHugh playing out in left field, Dalton Bargo playing. Dalton Bargo playing at first base in that game, so that you could get Andrew Wiggins in the lineup, and you saw why. So I think the quality thing here is the fact that you have a ton of depth for NC State in the lineup. Maybe not as many guys, as far as the field, but we'll see how many guys they're able to slide in and out. We also, Wyatt Pfeiffer too. Looked really good in the second game, and then obviously Sherman Johnson played really well in the first one. So you have a ton of options, and if somebody starts fading, now there's somebody that you can put in their place and try to kind of put a little bit of pressure on them and say, hey, look, take a step back, watch it. And I think that was a major issue for NC State. I think back to a few years ago where you absolutely needed somebody like Peyton Green to just figure it out.
Yeah.
And he never did. And that was a major issue for NC State in the lineup, losing, a couple guys that weren't very good in that season. So
feels like you're not handcuffing yourself.
Exactly. So you've got a lot of different options. Was really impressed with Jacob Duden too, the way that he performed. I'm interested to see how he does against a better competition. He'll get a few weekends to kind of ramp things up. The big thing for him is just getting going from a like an endurance standpoint. Like, all right, I can get past 50 pitches. I can get past 50 pitches every single week and then kind of grow to 60, 70 pitches. And then from there, be able to have, 5-6 inning starts on a consistent basis. So we'll see how he's able to do over the next few weeks. But, Ryan Marone, you've got your Friday dude. You've also got, obviously quite a few. Anderson Nance looked really good in his first game too. So you've got plenty of options.
Cool bonding trip too. Puerto Rico. A cool bonding trip too, just for the team in general. I mean, not a lot of teams get to go to Puerto Rico to play baseball.
Yeah, that and the fact that you find out that your last game is canceled, so you get to kind of spend the rest of the day. Well, it was canceled because of the weather, so I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if the beach was on the table, but getting a chance to kind of settle in and chill the last day. So, and then last thing too, also want to point out the fact that gymnastics, massive meet win for them on Friday. They were able to go to Chapel Hill and beat UNC yet again 2 straight times that it was called an upset. So there's that. But also 6 straight that they won against them. They did, however, lose in the quad meet to UNC on Sunday, where they were second place to UNC being first, but maybe it was because of the fact
that head-to-head though.
Yeah, exactly. Twice in a row, you'll take that every single time. And then last thing as well, softball, a big win on Friday, against Mizzou. So that was helpful. Not a great overall weekend for them, but, at least something to kind of take away from the weekend for them. And then another one too, the fact that wrestling went on the road, beat Duke to finish up ACC play. So big win for them. It typically is, Duke not very good in wrestling, but Cornell this coming up week will be yet another big test for them before you get to the ACCs and before you get to NCAA tournaments. So big one for them coming up. I'm hoping to be able to sit down and actually write a feature on Isaac Trumbull this week. I've had it sitting on the back burner for quite a little while, but Isaac Trumbull, the season that he's had has been unreal. Obviously, I think a lot of people expected it, but coming back from a major injury last season, for him to have the season that he has been really cool to watch. But all right, I think that just about wraps everything up. Did I miss anything else? Anybody? Okay. All right. We will take a quick break here, and then we will come back to talk some football with Michael Clark. Woo! All right. Let me add Michael in here. Michael, how are you, sir?
What's up? I'm doing all right. Charlie, what's up, dude? All right.
All right, let's see. Let me turn it up just a little bit. All right. Can you hear? Oh, hold on. All right, say it.
Oh. Testing.
There we go.
Okay.
Might have been a slight delay.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a delay. I'm trying to make sure.
You could put a mic.
No.
Like my mic on it if you want.
No. I think. Okay. Talk again, Michael.
Hello.
Okay. As long as there's no. I mean, like I can. It might look different out here, but I can at least hear him. So I think we'll be fine.
Yeah.
And it won't affect you guys because you're not going to see it. So yeah. All right. Are you ready to roll?
Yep. Sure.
Cool.
Ready? All right. Oh, let me unbuckle my top. I don't do that. I don't know why I did that. All right.
Yeah, loosen up, man. Loosen up.
I'm as loose as you can be on a Monday. You can be. All right. Let me shut this down. All right.
Got my second red oak, so we're good to go. All right.
Whatever it takes.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. Let's roll.
All right. We'll get started in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, everybody, to the Pack Power Podcast. I'm your host, Cory Smith, with Charlie Gribble. We've got Michael Clark with us on the second half. Oh, hold on. I apologize. We got Michael Clark with us at Pack Power 247.
Yeah, you're going to make me blush.
Michael, how are you doing, sir?
Doing great. Hope everybody else is.
Yes, sir. Let me turn it up just a little bit more. Okay, so let's jump right into things. Obviously, NC State over the last few days, last 24 hours actually, or a little over 24 hours, I guess, with the additions that they've had to the roster. Jalen Hampton coming in today from UT Martin, a guy at 6'8", 300, I believe 25 pounds, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he's big.
Offensive tackle, so very big man. Like about the size of DJ Burns, actually. So a very, very big man.
Pretty close.
And then, you also add Tad Hudson out of the transfer portal too. Looked at as more of a quarterback depth for this year. expected to potentially compete next year as a guy that has 2 years left of eligibility. So you bring him in, a guy that initially went to UNC as a 4-star quarterback, didn't pan out, leaves UNC, goes to Coastal Carolina, got the opportunity to start a couple times this past year, including the bowl game. But just your thoughts on those two additions and what they mean for NC State.
Well, I mean, starting with quarterback with Hudson, I mean, I've been vocal. I know we've had this talk multiple times, Cory, that the days of 4 scholarship quarterbacks on a roster, given the fluidity and how things work now, are going to be rare. But NC State, I think was looking to add some depth, and fortunately you were able to get somebody. It definitely will not hurt them. I would emphasize, though, in my opinion, that Will Wilson is, if not publicly named the backup, I would be very surprised. I mean, he's going to be the number 2. This is a depth piece, so I don't view it as like a quarterback backup controversy or something that it's just not. I don't see that. Hampton, a really nice late pickup. I think you felt good about your returning or Teague Anderson at right tackle and Jameer McCrimmon at left, but I can't remember the last time, Cory, that State had 3 or 4 guys that really hopefully feels comfortable with putting on the football field at tackle. This kind of does that. You throw Rico Jackson in the mix, and you've got 4 bodies. That's assuming this kid is what we think he could potentially be. That's a really good spot because offensive line depth, you've really dodged a couple bullets in the past 2-3 seasons with being able to stay fairly healthy up front. And I just think that's not something you can cross your fingers and rely on year after year. We know how this sport works. Big guys seem to get hurt more. Guys on the line of scrimmage definitely fall into that category. So, again, I think it's a nice pickup. It gives them a little bit more depth at tackle, and that's something they've needed for years.
Yeah, I was going to say another, kind of added benefit of that, too, is the fact that Rico Jackson, the guy that played tackle this past year when they needed him in a pinch, gets a bigger opportunity to slide back over to guard and really stick there. So that's, another added benefit, too.
Yeah, I think a big thing for NC State, and this sounds like a generic statement, but just talking to several people, the goal is to find the best 5 this year. Whoever can keep C.J. Bailey upright, I mean, he's obviously far and away the biggest investment on the roster. State's going to go as he goes. They need him to take a significant step forward in the offseason going into his junior season. So what helps you do that? A really good offensive line. I'm not really ready to say this unit is that yet. We certainly don't know. But I think as a whole, it's got to be better than it was last year. Bailey's going to get seems like all the blame when things go wrong, but I think anybody who watched NC State play last year would agree the offensive line wasn't near where it needed to be to compete for a conference championship.
Yeah.
No, that's not a hot take, but
some people disagree. It definitely didn't help, but the offensive line was the biggest.
Look, was I standing on the table to bring CJ? Obviously, yeah. I think CJ was the best available option far and away. Again, he does have to get better. He has to play better in spots, but I think NC State just needs to be better all the way around, especially, you look at the offense and the defense was towards the bottom, which we're going to talk about, I'm sure, in virtually every defensive category in the ACC. So it was a lot when they struggled. It wasn't just CJ.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to stick on that subject of kind of looking forward to NC State as we head to spring camp. So I wanted to play a little bit of a game with you guys and kind of look at, all right, what do you feel is the biggest strength for NC State after the transfer portal, after the fact that you've retained players? What position do you feel like is the biggest strength for NC State on the offensive side of the football heading into spring camp? And Michael, I'll let you start it.
I'd definitely say quarterback. I feel like, with C.J. Bailey returning and Will Wilson coming back, those are 2 guys who played for you last year. I think you feel very comfortable with those roles going forward. Obviously, Will Wilson's going to continue to develop and, work on his mechanics and stuff like that. But probably doesn't get talked about enough. I mean, he was Mr. Football in the state of South Carolina. That is a title that has always gotten my attention since I started covering recruiting over 15 years ago. I think that means something. I think it means a lot. It says a lot about not only the type of player that kid is, but typically the person and the leader. So, I think you feel really good there. It's spring ball, I think, starts Monday. So, there's so many questions. I can't remember a time covering NC State football where there's this many question marks on the roster. And I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying open spots, open competition. There are not, the exception of a couple positions, not a lot of definitive roles, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, spring ball actually starts the following. I think it's the following.
Is it next March? So
you report for camp on March 2nd, and then first day of camp is March 3rd. So you guys go ahead and put that on your calendar as when we need to go out there that morning too. So
anyway, it's coming up. It'll be here soon. It'll be here very soon. So now I think the thing is, okay, could there potentially be a late ad or two? There always could be, but I think now you go into spring ball kind of knowing what you have on the roster and what you're going to be working with ahead of the season. And I would venture to say this is one of the most critical off seasons because there are so many new faces and so many questions on the roster. The norm going forward, I think, for NC State fans to expect, and pretty much fans across the country, is every year between high school and the transfer portal, you're going to be half of your roster, at least the old size of 85, 40-plus guys every year are going to be brand new to Raleigh and brand new to your football program. So that is an adjustment this year with on top of the question marks in terms of proven guys that have been on the roster and then the additions, all that trying to gel is it's a tough job for a coaching staff. So, again, there's a lot of work to be done in the next couple of months.
Yeah, I'm going to go with tight ends just for something different to talk about. And obviously, you lose Jolie. That was your number one guy, at least pass catching wise. I feel like last year couldn't really rely on anybody on the outside or really on the inside. I feel like Jolie was your main target, but you bring in a guy, Vanderploeg from Oregon, a highly touted guy out of high school. Didn't obviously get a lot of action for a team that reached the semifinals last year. And then you bring in a guy like Hunter Province from, I think it was Montana State. Yep. Is this correct? I feel like that's
national
a guy,
champions.
National champions in that division for sure. Obviously, you lose a guy like Cody Hardy, but I think you bring in those pieces to kind of replace both Jolie and Hardy. And I think obviously you keep Bailey, as Michael Clark said. That's the main goal. But I think the tight ends will benefit the most from that. I think you have a couple question marks from the wide receivers. I know it's a lot of homegrown talent for Bailey, just the Miami area. Guys he's played with before, guys he's gelled with before. We'll see if that comes to fruition at the Division I level. But I really like the look of the tight end room. I think it's been coached well, obviously, the past couple of years by Locklear. So I expect it to continue.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the offensive line here. I think I would go with quarterback first of all, just to be clear. I do think it's
same here, but I was just trying to get something different.
If we're doing something different here,
no, you're gonna blame CJ too.
Yeah, exactly. No, give CJ motivation, right?
Yeah, just keep man.
You don't think I'm the best position player, no. But the reason why I'm going to go offensive line here is not necessarily that I feel like you took a step forward in terms of the overall talent, like the actual. I don't know that Jamarian McCrimmon is going to be better than what you had in Jacarius Peak, which, good Lord, both of them are very difficult names to say. But and spell, but. The fact that you were able to go out and go get another piece at left tackle that you feel like is an upside guy and a guy that has proven himself, at least from a run stopping standpoint. He has to get a little bit better as a pass blocker. But if that's your guy at left tackle, and then you also have Spike Souls coming back at the center position more than likely, and you have another piece in Teague Anderson coming back, the depth, the guys that you brought back already were pretty good there. And then you go out and go get some guards. I think the biggest question mark is going to be, are the guards good enough for NC State this upcoming year? Like Rico Jackson, I really like what you're bringing back there. And then you've got a couple others that all right, these guys, if they're able to step up and play better this year, then you have a good offensive line. But I do think that's to me, one of the bigger strengths coming out of this is not necessarily that you've added a ton, but you went out and got, again, Jalen Hampton to add to this unit. But you also have, a ton of guys that all right, if we don't have the front line ready to go, we've got other guys that can kind of step in again and be able to kind of push them at least.
I don't think Bailey was going to stay if that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
I felt like behind the scenes there was at least some promised money. Hey, regardless of what happens at the wide out position, tight end position, we will bring in guys along the offensive line. Whether it works out or not, we'll see. But I feel like it was promised. We'll get 6 or 7, 8 guys that can at least hopefully.
I honestly think that may be one of the bigger keys to the offseason is kind of solidifying the interior offensive line. I don't know if McCrimmon and Anderson, I wouldn't classify either as like elite, but I think NC State will be good enough at tackle. I really think, and we know Spike's going to be probably the next great NC State offensive lineman. I don't think there's any question about that, but he can only play one position. So how does that work? Does Daniel Cruz, the Texas kid from Texas, can he play guard? Can Kamen Smith take a significant step forward? Was injured in the Miami game. I have no clue on his status right now, but I am a little concerned there. I just think I have to see it. And I think that guard play and interior offensive line play gets overlooked sometimes. Everybody seems to hyper-focus on offensive tackles. NC State's at its best when it's been very good on the interior of the offensive line. And I'm not saying they can't be. I'm just saying we haven't seen it other than Spike. But, I mean, he was a true freshman. I'm not worried about him. I feel like he is going to be an all-ACC type candidate, especially with another year in the strength and conditioning program. Again, I was hopeful that they would sign a headliner out of the portal, a big-time offensive guard. That didn't come to pass. So how does this deal shake out? I think quietly one of the biggest keys to the season is the interior offensive line figuring out how to get your best 5 on the field, and are those guys capable of, keeping CJ Bailey upright? Because I just think so much is on Bailey's plate, and I know we'll keep talking about him as this goes on, but again, he cannot do it alone.
Yeah. And again, like I said, I mean, I really liked what you got in Rico Jackson this past year. Also, TK Whitsett is another guy that I think has a chance to produce there. And then, maybe we'll see Trey Aiken or Trent Mitchell, one of those two, kind of carve out a role, or even a Michael Gibbs that I know was, really close friends with Spike Souls coming out of high school. So
Brody Smith would be a freshman I'd watch. There's a lot of good positive buzz on him.
Yeah.
Son of a former NFL player. I believe his dad owns a strength and conditioning company. Don't hold me to that, but or a facility. So those type of kids are typically much further ahead physically. I believe he got to campus at 300+ pounds at 6'6". Mm-hmm. I just think you have to be open to all options because there's so much riding on this season with the investment of what you've made when it comes to the quarterback.
All right, moving over to the defensive side of the football, just your thoughts on, Charlie, I'll let you start this one so that you can pick the, whoever you think is the obvious one here. But defensive side of the football, biggest strength heading into spring camp here.
It's a tough one.
Good luck.
Yeah, I still think there's some holes at some certain spots, but I think you did maybe get enough from the linebacking group. Obviously, you got to replace a lot, especially at Fordham at that position. But you bring in a guy from Oregon. I mean, you bring in Dyson from Tulane. I feel like you got some guys that you can work with, but it just feels like a lot of question marks in general. I think there's a lot of new pieces, and there's not a lot of returning pieces. It's kind of hard to kind of decipher, but I will go with the linebackers just to name a position, but I still am very shaky on it overall. But
you're like, I'm going to include the edge rushers.
Edge rusher, yes, yeah.
That was going to be my take because I'd like not to cut anybody off. I don't know how we could really say a strength at this point. There are so many question marks. I mean, you lost all 3 starters on the defensive line. You lost far and away your best defensive player in Caden Fordham. Sean Brown is gone as well. I mean, there's just not a lot of experience. That said, I think the defense can be okay. We just don't know. So I'm not going to be one of these people to give you this hot take on, well, this guy's going to be really good and that guy's going to be
obviously.
It's not a lot of proven talent. A lot of guys.
I have never. I mean, seriously, when was the last time that there were this many questions? I mean, and that's again, that doesn't mean it's going to be terrible. I'm just saying we haven't seen a lot of these guys play some at all in NC State, and then others play very little. I think one of the bigger underlying keys to the defense is how do guys adjust from playing 15, 20 snaps a week to potentially 50 or 60. There's a lot different mindset, the physicality, the toll it takes on your body week after week. How do those guys, and a lot of them, Cory and Jordan, they're going to be probably redshirt freshmen, sophomores. I mean, that's just the way it works right now. You're going to get a lot of young guys that are going to be forced into action. And it just remains to be seen, how that's going to shake out.
Yeah, I'm going to go with safety here, just because of the fact that, like, you get a guy in King Mack who I believe was rated as one of the top, safeties to commit for PFF. One of, like, again, another guy that really NC State absolutely needed.
We were terrible there last year.
Yeah.
Lord.
Well, and again, Tristan Hill, or not Tristan Hill, but Tristan Teasdale got better down the stretch. One of the better.
Going to be a really good player too, I think.
Exactly. And so, like, the thing is, you can enter this upcoming year. I don't know that if it's going to necessarily be that way in the spring, but at least in the fall, you'll have a competition at safety.
Yeah.
Like, you have the fact that you have Ronnie Royal coming back. You obviously have Brody Barnhart coming back from a major injury. So you get both of those guys back, along with keeping Tristan Teasdale, who was really good down the stretch last year for NC State, and then King Mack, who comes over from Penn State and has a chance to, if he, if they figure out, like, all right, safety is actually going to be really good for us, maybe he slides down to nickel, we'll see. Or you kind of want to slide a guy like Brody Barnhart along with Tristan Teasdale, and then Ronnie Royal being kind of the third guy in that rotation. Maybe King Mack slides down to nickel, we'll see. But again, you've got options there. And I think the biggest thing for NC State is you entered this offseason not knowing if you had options at all at the safety position. And that was one of the most ravaged positions on any roster anywhere this past year for NC State and probably across the country. The fact that NC State literally ended up with just two safeties that you had to utilize on the stretch, and Ronnie Royal kind of piecing it together, being somewhat healthy down the stretch, but like, they needed bodies there. And you not only added bodies, you added a really good player in King Mack, along with retaining Tristan Teasdale. And if you can get Brody Barnhart back, and he becomes a little bit better as a coverage guy as opposed to just a big hitter in the back of this defense, you've got a lot of options there at safety.
Yeah, correct. And I just think, like I said, I was thinking about this as y'all were talking, the mass exodus in the transfer portal last year of the defensive backfield, we knew it was not going to be great, to say the least. Despite all the question marks that you go into this season, I think you're in a far better situation than you were this time a year ago. There were so many unknowns.
Oh, yeah.
And, push come to shove, young guys were playing and we're going to have to play anyway. But it did kind of reach a fever pitch. I did not envision. Maybe Tristan Teasdale envisioned him playing as a freshman and few others, but I did not see that. His situation kind of reminds me of Devin Boykin, 5 years ago, where he got thrown in the fire. Clearly, physically was not ready. And you look up, and I'm not saying this is what Tristan's going to do, but Devin Boykin was sensational for Indiana, especially down the stretch. And we knew how good of a player he was. Yeah, we knew how good of a player he was when he was healthy for NC State. Just suffered some injuries here and there. But going to King Mack, like, the position versatility is always been valuable. But with this transfer portal chaos that goes on, I don't know if it's ever been more valuable. Talked to several people. The consensus is he could possibly play either safety spot and play nickel. So, like, there's not a question in the people's minds that I've talked about, and I think that's really important because State's got to be better across the board on defense. Like, I think Caden Fordham was really good down the stretch, but like I said, in every defensive metric, statistic, whatever you want to say, they were at or towards the bottom of the ACC. So again, instead of blaming the offense, let's start with, hey, the defense needs to be a heck of a lot better this fall. If not, it just limits your ceiling as a football team.
Yeah. And we'll talk about maybe we'll do a podcast later where we'll just discuss the weaknesses going into spring camp, but we'll do that once we get a little bit closer for NC State. And, as we find out a little bit more about spring football too.
Yes.
But
I wanted to add one more thing that, like, the question marks again, I'm not saying to me, it's not overly concerning at the moment. I do think that you have added enough bodies through various ways to create competition at positions that desperately need it. Wide receiver comes to mind. As a group, everybody wanted to continue to talk about him as the year went on last year, not to go all over the place, but that was one of the more underperforming groups on the roster. The numbers don't lie. They weren't great. They were not close to where they needed to be. That has to change. The defensive secondary, not where it needed to be. That has to change. And again, I think the biggest thing is the number of bodies. I'm not saying there's a bunch of good players, but there's a lot of bodies at both the positions. And in turn, that should create competition. I think ultimately makes NC State better at both positions, which in turn makes you a little bit more optimistic about where things are going. Because if CJ gets rolling and I think he's going to have a really big year. And if he gets to where he needs to go, I think he has to take another step and elevate others. But if you can get solid receiver play, consistent, maybe above average receiver play, and you shore up your defensive secondary and defense in general, you're going to be fine.
All right, last thing I want to talk about here, the most important topic for most people when it comes to the NC State football team happens to be a 2027 quarterback by the name of Mr. Gunnar Rivers. You might recognize the last name.
Never heard of him.
A legacy quarterback, happens to be one of many children of Philip Rivers, but the firstborn son, and a guy that happens to be a 4-star quarterback.
He's pretty good
here. Well, Philip Rivers, yes. Now Philip Rivers, a 3-star tight end, by the way, that ended up panning out pretty well for NC State. But we'll talk about the upcoming quarterback and NC State trying to target him right now. Obviously, we've talked about it a little bit on the boards. There's been an uptick in optimism for NC State when it comes to him, and we've seen it obviously around social media and things along those lines. Just your thoughts on where NC State currently stands, because I know talking to you recently, you felt even better about where NC State stands with him going into what will be a critical couple months, because you not only want to lock down a quarterback, but you typically need to lock down a quarterback pretty early when it comes to the class to try to be able to build around him and know, like, all right, this is going to be your quarterback for the future.
Well, yeah. I mean, they need to. He is a top priority. Probably one of the
Rivers at any time, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm not saying like,
I
wouldn't wait on it. Yeah.
Go ahead and say it. He's one of the most important recruits in recent NC State history. We might as well just throw that out there. Just the position, the importance of the position. I think the bigger thing here is just the resources and time that NC State has donated. Spent, however you want to word it, on this, this recruitment. And we're not even in we're in February, 2026. There's a ways to go. The sooner you can get a quarterback, even if it was not him, obviously that's the top choice. We're not trying to digress or anything like that. It would be better for NC State. Landing a name like him would give them an unmatched buzz on the recruiting trail. It would create somewhat of a domino effect. Maybe not to what you would usually see 5-10 years ago, because we all know this. The money's driving everything. We see that. How do we know? Well, look at who's winning, and then look at how many kids are transferring because they're not happy, which means to me, I've talked to Cory about this off air today, like how many of these kids would go to certain schools without NIL. I guarantee you there'd be a high number that it wouldn't be their top choice where they end up. They simply go for financial reasons, and this is why we have what we have. But he's important. Need to get him on campus for a spring practice. That needs to be the first step. Outside that, official visit needs to get booked soon. He's got so many suitors. I continue to hear Kentucky, Texas, and NC State. So I have to go with what I hear. But I do think NC State is in a really good spot. This is not your typical recruitment. I believe Phillips made, $250 million in the NFL. Probably doesn't go as far with 10 kids. But
by the way, they're all on.
You guys health insurance, though.
Yeah, they're all on health insurance.
I don't blame him one bit there.
I don't have to worry about it, man. They're all set.
Yeah,
Gunnar is set through college.
What I mean is, I don't don't want to jinx it, but I don't think you're going to have to get in a bidding war for Gunnar Rivers. And that's just fair or unfair. NC State's just not going to win that battle against a Texas or even Kentucky. So you have to do everything you can to land him, and I think the staff has done that. But I think the biggest thing here is, from what I've gathered, is while Phillip Rivers is a piece to this, he's not the center. This is Gunnar's recruitment. They try to emphasize he as his own person because, I mean, I know it's probably exhausting even for a 17 or 18-year-old. All he ever hears or all he ever sees is NC State. Your dad played here. Blah. I'm sure he's heard it enough. And, again, I will say this. Should NC State land him, I mean, he's really, really, really good. So it would be not only a shot in the arm recruiting-wise, but it would put you in a really good spot for years to come in the ACC.
It would help having a big year, too.
Yeah.
It would help not going 3-9.
Yeah.
Well, you can't have the game this year. You need to avoid the game or games that you should not lose. You really can't do that. You've invested heavily in the quarterback. CJ Bailey, money aside, didn't come back to go 8-5. I mean, and you got to take a next step at some point. Like, it's time. The schedule, to me, is more than manageable. It just comes down to how guys develop, how quickly do they gel, and most importantly, can CJ take that next step? Because fair or unfair, that's going to have to happen. He's going to have to make guys better each and every Saturday, elevate the entire team. And if they do that, I mean, State's going to go into most games with the advantage at quarterback, and that gives you a shot. So he elevates his play, the program elevates.
Yeah, I feel like it was a top 10. I feel like NFL scouts have Bailey right now.
Yeah.
Next year's draft.
Yeah.
That needs to stay. That needs to stay.
I mean, with a good year, he's going to be a high round draft pick. With a great year, he can really.
Top 10 as a quarterback might mean you're not even drafted until the 5th or 6th round. True. So, like, you've got it. Yeah,
there's room to grow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's going to be a mid-round draft pick, probably at worst, I would think, just based off.
Unless he blows up and has a huge season. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't anticipate him digressing or being worse. But if he plays better than last year, I mean, another year like he had last year, at least statistically, would get him in the middle, I would think. But if he really takes that step, I mean, he's a first-round talent. The measurables and all those things. I've got a buddy who's an NFL scout. I've picked his brain numerous times. He's really connected, obviously. I mean, the talent is not there. It's not. He's got all of it. All the tools that you want in a first-round quarterback, CJ Bailey possesses. Now it's time for him to take that next step. And I think when you're evaluating a guy like CJ, I've told Cory this multiple times, it's almost fair or unfair. Throw his true freshman season out. I would not put a lot of weight in that because he did not plan to be the starter.
Yeah, that was not the plan at all.
I mean, was he 17 years old? I mean, he'd been on campus for 7 months, and he's the starter for you with sky-high expectations because of what you added in the portal. That was not the plan. I'm not saying that doesn't go into it, but, man, and nobody, of course, wants to give a quarterback any grace. So I get it, but I think this year was really his first year, I think, as a starter. I mean, if we're being somewhat fair.
Yeah, the other thing I'll add about Gunnar Rivers really quickly, too, before we roll out of this is the fact that NC State does have a pretty natural official visit host for him, and his best friend that happens to play running back for NC State this upcoming year, Noah Moss, who they took an unofficial, or Gunnar took an unofficial visit. He took an unofficial visit just to come to Raleigh. They said that their visit to NC State was better than what they got at Auburn. So
it helped winning. Help winning too.
Yeah, exactly. It certainly helps winning, but also and beating UNC at home certainly helps as well. So there is that. But if you're potentially going to bring him in for an official visit, which look, NC State's hosting quite a few official visits actually in March. So if you're having people on campus, if I was NC State, I'd be trying to target getting him on campus during the same weekend that you already have Griffin Cockerham, and I believe you're also supposed to have
Freeman.
Yes, exactly. Freeman on the same weekend. But man, if you're
Ty Phillips as well, who's their top running back target.
Yes, exactly. Ty Phillips too. Yeah.
Christian Freeman, but Ty Phillips is a guy that State loves.
Yeah.
Him moving to South Carolina and going to high school there is not great, but for State. But again, I think the staff has done enough legwork. You know, Alex Falk, Lafayette Stewart, all the guys kind of behind the scenes running the recruiting stuff. When he's been on campus. Those two, I think, in particular, have made him feel really comfortable. And, you know, that does go a long way still in this day and age. Because, I mean, I don't think a high school running back, there will be a handful maybe that command a lot of money. I'm not saying he's not one, but that's not typically a position at the prep level that is going to, you know, break the bank per se.
Exactly. All right. Well, I think that'll just about wrap things up. Michael, I appreciate you for jumping on, man.
All right, man. Y'all take care. Thanks for having me.
All right. Appreciate you. Appreciate Charlie for jumping on as always. And thank you to everybody that joined us this week. Thank you again to everybody for talking on the Pack Pro.